Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it anywhere and everywhere. You can even earn money all in one place for free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works.
Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today.
Then you can go ahead and distribute your podcast to Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify. And when you want to take the conversation with your fans to the next level, Q&A polls are the best way to get them talking.
With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions.
And best of all, it's totally free with no catch. We've been using Spotify for Podcasters, and we highly recommend you give it a try. Download Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters and get started.
Hey, welcome back to That's So Fringy podcast. I'm Rick.
And I'm Kristen, and Bethany is, once again, MIA. She's working. Wah, wah, wah.
Somebody's got to make that money. I think you guys are going to enjoy this episode. We have a guy by the name of Rod on, and he's going to be talking to us about his podcast, Millennial Mustard Seed, which, if you haven't checked it out, please do. You can find that in the show notes, link to that and where you can find him. Mm-hmm. But also we talked about near-death experience that he may or may not have had. Mm-hmm. No, he most definitely had one, and we talked about it.
Yeah, we are so grateful he was willing to come on and open up about it. It was tough for him. I mean, you can see how hard it is to relive that, but it's something that needs to be talked about. It's one of those like uncomfortable church things that nobody wants to talk about, and those are the things we're trying to talk about more and more. But
yeah, we talked a little bit about heaven. Like, what does that look like? What's the transition look like? How do we like?
I'm like, where's the roadmap? How do I get there?
Yeah, maybe someday.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We are pushing this message out, as we say all the time, to all four corners of the earth. And it's shocking to us. We have a little bit of imposter syndrome trying to figure out why people are listening, but I don't think that really matters to Jesus. He's blessing the message. And I think that, if we continue to keep the main thing, as a very wise man that I know says, then I don't think anything other than growth is going to happen for this podcast. And we're so looking forward to that. Yeah. But you guys have to continue to share. You have to continue to review and let those algorithms work.
I've given the analogy before of, being a light. And like the Christmas Eve service at our church always does this, and I love it, where they start with one candle, and then you go around, and then you light your neighbor's candle, and your neighbor's candle, and all this stuff, and then pretty soon the whole room is bright and beautiful, and that's how it works. You share this one time, and then they share it with somebody, and we cannot say thank you enough to all of you listening and everything that you're doing to help get the message out. I mean, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, and we don't want you to ever think that we're ignoring you. We are super busy. I work full time. My wife works full time from home, watching the kids and making sure everybody's getting to where they're supposed to be, taking care of the home, and she loves it. And we are just so busy, but we want you to know that we do care about you, and we will get back to you. We read every comment, every review, everything that comes through. We're reading it all. So, just keep reaching out, and we'll get back to you. I promise you that.
Keep sending the messages. We love them.
Yeah, we love connecting with you guys. We just want to be real. We want to be real people standing in front of a microphone, having real conversations with people, and hopefully that's coming across to you guys loud and clear. So You got anything else?
I don't think so. We're going to get Rod on. He's a super interesting guy. You guys are going to love it. His podcast is Millennial Mustard Seed. We'll put all that stuff in the show notes so you have all that. But here we go with Rod.
All right, you guys, we're back with That's So Fringy podcast. I'm Rick.
And I'm Kristen.
And we are here with our friend Rod Smith. Rod, we are so blessed to have you and so grateful that you've taken the time to come on. You have a podcast that we've been listening to, the Millennial Mustard Seed, and we're really enjoying that. And just so grateful that there are others out there teaching us the things that we might be missing, and that's what this is all about, coming together like this. So we just wanted to introduce you to the audience and hopefully help people find a lot more outlets, a lot more people to listen to so that we can get the full truth, if you understand what I'm saying there.
I'm blown away you got the name right on the first try. Props for that, bro. I've been on so many shows and it's a tongue twister for the name. And thank you for those kind words.
Of course.
Honestly, it's amazing to find other people that are like-minded, that are doing the same thing, because the calling is going out from heaven. There's many people that need to fulfill these roles. So it's an honor for me to be here with you guys.
Yeah, we appreciate you saying that, man.
Thank you so much.
We just have fun. This is great. Yeah. We love having conversations about all of this stuff, all the weird, wacky stuff that you're talking about. We're talking about all that stuff too. We just might not have got to all of it yet, if you know what I mean. So tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got started and everything that you're doing, because there is obviously a huge passion for this stuff for you. Yeah, I mean,
I've had a supernatural life my whole life, right? So for me, it was just something that it never really worked until I seen it in light of God's word.
Okay.
So like I had supernatural stuff kind of happen throughout my whole life, and in my early 20s, I really came to Christ and surrendered my heart. And that's when things started to kind of like, everything was compounding before that. And it was a lot of confusion, a lot of just misdirection, a lot of what do I do with this information?
Yeah.
Why, all that crazy fun stuff. And then it started to make sense when I came to Christ. It was like things were being filtered and things were being put on the back burner that I knew were important, but they weren't for right now. And other things were becoming relevant. And that was more or less like, do I trust him? Am I willing to say yes and keep walking with him? Do I have a desire to read the word? And relying on him in the small things and the big things to weed out everything that my culture and my family and my friends and just the world at large was literally force feeding me. So, it kind of starts with me. I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm still in southeastern PA. I keep moving further away from Philadelphia as I get older.
Yeah.
And, but it's, I'm a millennial. I grew up with a lot of different influences, a lot of things, to choose from. I didn't make the best decisions when I was younger. I really didn't. I made poor decisions, partied a lot, and I grew up secular. So I didn't really know until I knew, but I had like a series of things that happened, but the near-death encounter was probably the biggest smack to my reality check of like, there's so much more. There's so much more. And I couldn't kind of let that one go on the back burner. That was the one that stopped everything in the tracks and was like, now you have to really zone in and focus on what's happening here. So that's kind of like a 30,000 foot view quick of just, kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing in a nutshell.
No, that's awesome, man. And so this near-death experience that you had, was this, how many years ago was this now?
Man, I was like 19 or 20, and it's so weird because I always was like weirded out by talking about this. I always felt like people were going to say, oh, he's weird, or people say they get beat up and they get like a black eye. Like, oh, everybody's been beat up, man. And we all got those stories, and I'm like, no, like I got stomped into the ground. Like these guys tried to kill me. Right. So I always just kind of felt like among everybody I was around, like people knew the story, like everybody knew what happened to me. So it just was like kind of normal. But what I experienced, I always felt like nobody's really going to care, or they're going to think I'm weird if I try to get into it. So it's weird how like now I get hit up by like people reach out to me. I think you guys are the third or fourth show within the next few months that wants to hear about my near-death encounter. And I'm like, what? I'm like that for me, that's weird because like I had made up my mind about it. This is whatever, right? But here, I guess it's something that when people hear these testimonies, it really helps them. Yeah. And the more I realized, like, I'm not alone. It was Aleko that I had on from the IDC, from the Intelligent Design Collective. I think it was early last year. I'm really bad with like precise timelines, but I think it was last year. And he shared his near-death encounter. And I just remember it was profound hearing his. And then I was like, man, you know, and then talking off air with different people and praying through it. And like, I had fully forgiven these people. So I'm like, there is power in this. So it's just so weird now that I'm like talking with other podcasters and like, so what happened? And I'm like, man, this is crazy. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot what you asked me.
No,
so
you're good, man. I was just talking about the near-death experience, but I'll back up for a second. I've told my wife before that, you know, us being millennials ourselves, we're barely millennials, but we, you know, we're kind of rebellious. You know, our whole generation is kind of rebellious. They're just kind of like, they started getting tattoos. They started listening to rap music. They started doing like all of this different stuff. And I think that that's because they wanted us to do that. You know, they wanted us to be distracted from all of the nefarious things that they were doing. But what they didn't realize was going to happen, and I'm finding a lot of this, how God's spinning things on them, is that all of us rebellious teenagers are now adults with the internet, and we don't believe anything you're saying. Yeah, we don't believe anything you're saying. Like nothing matters. You know, we're going to find out ourselves. Our parents were like, no, don't touch that. It's hot. And we're like, please. We're like, I'll find out myself.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm all in.
Yeah. And so these crazy wacko millennials came along and they just ruined their plan, you know, because we don't take no for an answer. We're rebellious teenagers and we're rebellious adults. Deal with it.
Yeah. And I think we really are like, it's quite provocative because our generation is right on the cusp of technology coming in full force, right? So I remember like before we were getting hair on our face or hair on our chest, we had these mini supercomputers. I remember the chirps. I think they were like the i80s, the i30s, right? Yo, what are you doing? Right. And it was just like a walkie-talkie phone, but it was like a phone. I think it was a Nextel. But like,
now that's a Cardi B call.
I can't keep up with all this new stuff now, but we're right on this cusp. You know, where like we grew up kind of playing down by the river and we're working and like, you know, being real kids, but then being kind of warped into this technology realm. You know, where people false personify themselves, where you can be or act however you want to be in this world. You can look at anything you want to look at in this world. And the millennial generation, we're way more important than people give us credit for because of being on that cusp. Yeah. So yes, we're an experiment to these elites who have terrible plans in mind, and God is flipping the script on them because he specializes in coming in and being like, oh, you know, what does it say in like Proverbs? He's like, he laughs at those who plan against God. He's mocking them like, okay, everything you got, you don't have a backup plan for what God is going to do. And he's going to take the weak things of this world and use it to confound the wise and to do it's just, I'm excited for what's coming because I know God has been kind of whispering things to me secretly. And I'm hearing other people from other, like, I guess you could say like little coves or little hangout spots within Christianity, and they're echoing the same thing. And we're all starting to find out who's who. And I'm like, God, you're building an army.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm not standing in his way. I'm on board. I'm all in. I'm like fifth gear pinned, right? So the enemy's not going to last long with what he thought was our destruction is going to be his downfall.
Yeah, exactly right. So let's run us back to this near-death experience because, you know, we threw out the hook. We got the listeners in and they're ready to hear it. And I'm ready too. You got me hooked. You had a near-death experience and you said you were about 19. So let's dig into it. What happened there? Yeah. So
this is May and I think I'm 19 or 20. Right. And I go to a house party and it's just, we were partying. Personally, like I'm not ashamed to say it. I haven't smoked weed in a long time since I came to the Lord 9 years ago. But we were smoking and we were drinking and we were partying.
Sure.
And this party gets crashed. I mean, I go to bed probably around like 1:30 in the morning and I get woken up. So I'm on the 3rd floor of this house and one of my friends comes up and wakes me up frantically. I don't know, maybe 3 a.m., maybe 2:30. And he's like, yo, these guys crashed the party. I had 2 of my friends that got beat up real bad, that he is like kind of interceding for, like, yo, we got to get them and get out of here, or you got to come down here and try to help. It was just chaotic. So I wake up and I come down and I peek outside and it's like a long, like face to this house. And I look this like to the right and I look to the left and I just see 3 guys over there. And I'm like, yo, did you jump my first? Cause I was just going to, I mean, I'm not a fighter, but I could fight, Yeah. And I was going to run up on somebody and just be a part of the action, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I get over there and a guy comes out of one of the, like the little cubbies or like little hallway looking things or whatever you want to call it. And literally hits me in the right side of my face. And these were no punks, they were skinheads from Norristown, PA. So this is a bunch of white guys who jumped this party. Now 2 of my best friends, one of them was half black and half Irish, and the other one was Sicilian, but he looked like maybe he was Dominican at 3 a.m, right? So I look like the white guy hanging out with these colored cats. Yeah. But these are my dudes, right? So they catch me and they just start whooping on me. And I fought back. I think I broke one of the guy's ribs. I remember I fell into a guy and wrapped around him and was squeezing, and I heard a pop. And so he started yelling, and all of these guys, I think there was 8 of them total, and like bystanders that like weren't for me either, but like 8 of them were putting in work on me, right? They were. And I slowly just started to kind of fade. Like I knew what was happening. I knew I was getting hit from my sides, behind, in my head. And I knew it wasn't good, but I had never, through physical trauma, entered into a place where I'm losing complete function. Right. So I kind of feel like I fell into this place. And then I was trying to sit up out of my body, but my body was there, but me, like who I am, was coming up out of my body. Yeah. And really, I mean, this experience was something that just at that level messed me up for a long time, like PTSD from it. Trying to understand how to understand what's really going to happen when I die.
Yeah. You begin to process that, like what the heck? How do you separate from your body? Like what does that even look like? And just so you know, we believe you wholeheartedly. We've gone on deep rabbit trails, documentaries and, looking it up ourselves, and just, there's so much going on out there that we've been kind of told you're not allowed to talk about that. That's not Christian, or that's not this, or that's not that. And you're just like, well, but does it happen? Going back to us being millennials, wait a second. Does it happen? And you're like, well, there's a couple stories on the internet where people have said that, and you're just like, boom, where? Which website? And so we're just going deep now on, and you're finding corroboration all throughout the world. And it's getting to the point where, we as people have to make a decision on whether we believe it or not. Do we believe that there is a heaven? Do we believe it? Because these millions of documented cases of people are saying, I've been there, and then you could probably take a good chunk of that and say, they're maybe lying, but there's a large chunk of people that had a real live experience and more live than they've ever had before in their whole life. And I think that's what you're experiencing. Did you hear about the one where
the lady, she was like in an emergency room and she coded and they were working on her, and she came up out of her body and above the hospital. And so when she is revived and comes back down, she's like, there's a blue shoe up on the third floor on the railing, and there's a scuff on the right toe, and the shoelace is under the heel, like super descriptive.
That's crazy.
And they're like, okay. And then one of the doctors went up and checked it out, and it was true. Like in there, she would have had no idea that was up there, and how specific.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I think, like, for me, what it felt like, let me just cover that real quick, and then I'll try to move on emotionally from trying to recant this experience.
Yes, sir.
I kind of felt like I was in water, like thin pressure over my body. And I didn't see any lights. It was dark. It was eerily dark. And it was like being in a mist a little bit. And I remember trying to sit back into my body, but then falling down like into the ground and being like trying to find where my body was to lay in my body, because I didn't want I didn't know what was happening. I didn't want to come out. But that was weird. And then, you know, kind of going from
Did you have any pain or anything while this was happening? Like, were you feeling any pain?
Like zero pain. Okay. Yeah, zero pain. My brain had swelled up and was tapping the inside of my skull. I mean, I was swollen from the tip of my nose, which, you know, I got a pretty pointy nose, so it sticks out a bit, right, all the way to the back of my ear. So, I mean, my eye was swollen shut for weeks. You know, it is what it is, right? And my ribs and stuff, but like my face was jacked up. So,
so that feels like a mist that you're in a water, you were saying.
Yeah. And it feels like you're in water.
And there's a feeling of like, what? Like, what? It
was eerie.
Yeah.
It was eerie. It was like dead quiet. Like I didn't hear anything. But, and I remember like my fingers didn't feel like fingers, right? Like the function there didn't feel like it does here. Like when I reach for my cup here, I'm in control. I can feel my cup. I know I'm thinking, reach for it, right? Everything just worked. We don't even think about it. You know what I mean? We just do stuff. But there, I remember it being like, I don't know, maybe if you were blindfolded and zip tied and threw in water, you'd just be like, there's nothing I can do here. You kind of feel stuck. I just remember feeling stuck. And that's why I kept trying to like sit in my body, because I didn't want to come all the way out of it. And I don't have like a strong belief in God at this time. Like this is one of those things where I didn't grow up in the church. We went here and there. And, you know, so I'm like, what I'm dealing with is like, no, come back in your body. This doesn't, like, we don't go here. Like, this doesn't happen. Everything was cool 5 minutes ago. Now I'm like tapping into this realm that nobody really told me was there. I don't really know where to go get information on this. And so like all of that like happened like in an instant, but more or less I didn't want to leave my body. Like I just wanted to like, nope, I want this level of function in operation. And then it was years after that really was the onset of like deep diving into and building up the courage to be like, that was real. Now I cannot not go here. I don't care what anybody says. Like this is an experience, but I was doing that in like secret space because I would try to talk about it like out loud, and it just bad company or bad information. You can't squeeze nothing good from something bad. So a lot of it was internal. But like I said, once I started to get into the word and I started to understand, well, that's not super uncommon to have, I guess, these minute little experiences with the spiritual realm, right? Or like started to get the proper context. And like, instead of listening to the people, you know, that was the development of the new age information at that time, you know, I started to actually get this tugging that no, it's in the word. I'm pointing to my Bible here. So if you see me look over my Bible, stays with me. It's my side piece.
There you go.
Stays
with
me.
Yeah. I like that.
But yeah, so that's what kind of was the biggest shock, was really dealing with it after the fact. Because like, you know, it's kind of like moments go by and then you wake up the next day, you know, hospital and then healing and then, you know what I mean? All that stuff. But like the lingering effects of a near-death encounter, when it's not a positive one, I've heard people talk about good ones. I'm like, cool, glad that happened for you. It was dark and eerie for me.
It's almost like Scared Straight, you know, like maybe that's what you needed to see at that moment to get you on the right track.
And that's probably the biggest thing is with people who know me and grew up around me, is they seen how I went from super chill, laid back, kind of like a pothead, didn't talk too much, didn't ask any questions, wasn't too like ferocious about anything, just kind of always chill. Now to like, you know, aggressively putting in what I consider to be the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing type of ministry, like doing, you know, just going all in. And so I think that is a lot of the testimony locally where people are like, yeah, you shifted some gears. Whatever happened when you got beat up, you started to go a different direction. So I think God used that, and I don't think God plans that for us. I think it's just like it says in the word, they intended this for evil. And plus I was making bad choices. It's not like I was protected.
Right.
Yeah.
But God is using that to now, I guess, give me a testimony or a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you have a platform. You have a platform that God has given you to share this message and to share all of the things that you've been through, because that's one of the things, like when you go to church and you talk to people and they're like, what's God like? Or what's this church thing like, or whatever. And everybody tries to start giving you the church rules, but it's like, no. The church is like just what we're doing right now, just hanging out and talking.
Yes.
You know, like we can just talk, and the fact that you have to figure out where you can sit and where you can't sit, and, you know, when to stand and when to sit and when to kneel and all those things. It's like, let's have good, deep, meaningful conversations. And I'm so grateful that you're able to talk openly about your experience, because you know, I can tell it affects you still to this day. But you know, I know what it's like to go through PTSD, and so I know that when you tell me that you were having a hard time, I can relate. I know what you're talking about, because you get that trauma in your head, and then your body remembers.
Oh yeah.
Your body remembers that trauma, and you have these reactions that you don't even know why it's happening, you know?
Yeah.
Is that the kind of thing that you were experiencing? Is just a lot of like, you know, how do I deal with this information type thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the PTSD like has worn off significantly, and God has really kind of supplanted some of that with drive to just want to know more about the word and run the race. But the lingering effects that I still deal with is sometimes I'll get stuck in my head about it. And it's almost like I'm in this box of like kind of re-experiencing it. And then like the trigger points of like, well, I remember how desperate and how alone and how crazy I felt while thinking about it at this part of my life. And I'll remember decisions I made, like rejecting people and kind of being a hermit. And like, it'll take me down this whole place in my own head where I'll be like, that was a chain reaction that destroyed relationships and really stole like years of my life. So like, I think that's like kind of like the cautious area where I would tell people, talk about it with other people, because I didn't for so long. Like I would test the waters with it, or people would hear about it, like, yo, what happened? Like, give me the inside. But it was never like, there's a difference between a Christian who's got light, who has, right? They're connected. They're a branch. They have the vine. The light is in them. It is God who works in us and through us to cause his will to come about. Connecting with them is almost like therapeutic. Like you were saying, it's not church-like. There's no like stand up, sit down. No, you can't talk about this here. That doesn't fit in with these guys. Right. When it's a real body thing, it's you're being ministered to. You're like kind of sharpening and sharpening. You're getting good advice. But when you don't have that, it's dangerous, because you'll get stuck in those places. So sometimes I'll think about it and be like, nope. We're not going deep diving into that experience. I'm going to get in the word and pray. And then God will show me his extent of mercy, his extent of grace, his plan for my life that supersedes the traumas of the past. And that's really the balance mechanism that I'm like, God, your word, it is all that. I will be on the front line. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I'm not ashamed of this Bible. Like that's the only thing that showed me all the years I wasted in the dark by choice. Like I was in the dark by choice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've
definitely.
all been there.
We've all been there.
Yep.
None of us are exempt, you know?
Yeah.
And the glory is we come out of that. He snatches us out.
Yes.
He leaves the 99.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
That's cool.
Yeah. Do you
so
feel
cool.
like when you were you like watching yourself, or was it more just the feeling of like, I mean, I imagine like if I drop the lid of my Dr. Pepper bottle and it's dark, and I'm like, oh my God, and I'm frantically like looking for a bottle cap. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, you're trying to find your body. Like, how I can't imagine how terrifying that would have been.
Well, the only thing I can compare it to is when I was 7, I had an out of body experience where I was far away from my body, watching my body. And that was different than this. This was like, I was trying to be in my body. It's almost like, just use your imagination with me. You hold your hand up. And for some reason, if like the true essence of your hand was out of your hand, right? And you seen it, but you were trying to get it to fit back in there, but it was just all over. You'd be like, well, I can't use this thing until me is in there, right? So this was a close contact thing where I wasn't far away from my body. I didn't travel. I don't remember my thighs and my knees leaving my body. This is like my torso up, like, cause I wanted to sit up and be like, I want to defend myself. Like, this circle of people are around me and now I'm laying on the pavement. I wanted to get up and roll and get out of the way. But as I tried to get up, I realized that what I was feeling wasn't right. I couldn't function like the way I thought I could. And that's when I realized my body was below me. I didn't look at my entire body. It was just a feeling, like you just know when you know, right? Like it was just, I was coming out of my body.
Yeah.
But it was all right here, like in my bubble. It wasn't, because I still wrestle with what happened with that whole distance thing or whatever. Because when I was 7, I'm up in the corner of the room and I'm engulfed in light and I'm watching the younger version of me playing with a little Batman toy. I still don't know completely what to do with that. But that was different. The feeling was different. That was warm and comfortable. And it wasn't eerie like this near-death encounter was. This was dark.
Yeah. It makes me think of it was a story of a guy that was skiing and he was in an avalanche. And when you're buried in snow and you're tumbled and like, you don't know which way is up, which way is down. You have no idea. It's dark. There's, I imagine it probably felt something like that, but that would be terrifying.
Yeah, it's wild.
I don't recommend anybody volunteers to try experience that.
It is crazy though, because I always wonder, like, what percentage of people in the church are really afraid to die? Like everybody's like, oh no, I know where I'm going and I'm not afraid to die. But nobody talks about it. Like I have a little bit of fear of like what it's going to be like. Cause we have a guidebook of the Bible that says, absent with the body, present with the Lord. So we know where we're going, but like, there's no, I'm a, rule follower. I'm like I got to have an outline, there's no A, B, C, D to go down here and turn this way. And, you just don't get that. So just that in and of itself gives me a little anxiety about it. Not because I doubt where I'm going, but it's the journey of getting there, I guess.
If we're real with ourselves, we'll agree with what you just said, Kristen. If everybody was real with themselves. I mean, it's not like fear, like hellfire fear, but it's unknown. This is uncharted, untapped, right? So if people are real with themselves, even if your faith is really high, there's still the anticipation of, not that it's fear-driven anticipation, but it's like, this is unknown.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not like, oh, well, let's just cancel the road trip and turn around. Like when you're when you're going, when God calls you, whatever that process looks like, it should open people's eyes. I think people that have an interest because God put the interest on their heart to have a podcast like what you're doing, to broadcast these kind of messages, to help people that are suffering from PTSD with similar experiences. Dope. Right. However God is going to use this message to go out and reach people, but there's people listening that have experienced very similar things. Right. And you may need to hear somebody else say it's okay to talk about that.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Or I believe you. Like, like that goes a long way, especially in this community, where nobody really knows what to believe. When you stake your claim on Jesus, then you're saying to everybody around you, I've done my research. I've come to the conclusion. It's almost like the book of Ecclesiastes, like been there, done that, tried it all. In the end, Jesus, and he obviously he doesn't say Jesus, but he basically
put that on
says,
his shirt.
I probably should.
Yeah, you should. Let me get one of those 1X too.
Okay. I got you. Yeah. So we have to just realize that it's almost like when I tell my kids, just listen to me. I promise. Just don't do that. I've already done it. I've done it a lot, actually. Just don't do it. And they're just like, yeah, whatever, dude. I'm going to do it anyway. That's how we are to God. We don't want to do it. But when we get older and then we're talking to our parents and we're like, yeah, you were right.
So right.
Yeah, you were so right. I should have listened to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the book of Ecclesiastes is doing for us.
Yeah.
You got this guy that's like, hey, listen, I've had all the money in the world. Doesn't matter. I've had all the women in the world. It doesn't matter. I've had all of the goods. I've had houses. I've had the boats. I've had the Bentleys. I've had all of it.
None of them matters.
I've been Jay-Z. I've been, Eminem. I've been bigger than all those guys. Like there's nothing that this guy didn't have or didn't do. And he says at the end, it's all like chasing smoke.
Yeah.
Like it's just like chasing smoke. And once you get that in your mind, you don't have to do those things anymore. You don't have to find out on your own anymore. Like I try to tell my children, you don't have to find out. I have the answer. But we don't listen, we just bang our heads against the wall and try to run down all of these paths like squirrel. Look at that. And it's like, no, dude, don't.
And it does give us a testimony, right? Mm-hmm. It does give us a testimony. And I think that God wants to partner with us more than I don't think we realize how much God loves us because we don't really see ourselves that way.
Right.
Yep.
Like we haven't been loved that way by somebody else. So we think, oh, okay, the way I have reciprocated these relationships, the way I have, acted with people is the measure of the way that I feel they view me. Right. So it's like a little back and forth. You know what I mean? But if we start to tap into how God sees us and loves us, then we become broken and contrite because we realize it's all vanity. It's all vanity.
So good.
If I have little or if I have much, if I'm it says in the word, God, don't give me so little that I have to steal and be ignorant, a bad reputation to your name, but don't give me so much that I drift away from you and forget who you are. Give me the perfect balance, right? And so God disciplines those who he loves. And it's the same, like you were saying, because I have teenagers. My youngest is going to be 7 soon, right? And I look at it and go, sometimes we watch from a distance, equipping them with just enough, don't do that. I'm not going to be right up on you, every single time being like, no, you know what I mean? You know what's right and what's wrong. Now figure it out. But I'm your advocate. I love you terribly. And I will come running if you scream for me. Yep. I'm there, but I'm not babysitting you. Yeah. And a lot of the times we find ourselves like that, but church culture doesn't know what to do with that.
No.
Right. Oh,
absolutely
no.
Not.
The only person who gets the mic there is the good little boy who's been going his whole entire life. He's got the button down shirt on. His hair's parted to the side. He doesn't got tattoos or, scars or nothing. It's no, but that's not the body. Yeah. This is the body.
That's only
and I'm not saying that they don't belong.
Sure.
They have a place too, but we have a place too.
Yep.
We're the ones who have been kicked out. So sorry, I don't mean to be rambling at this point.
No, I love it.
This is the rambling podcast, but
I used to have so much anxiety about wearing ripped jeans to church. I would not wear them. I'm just no, I can't.
Yeah.
And now I'm just I don't care.
I used to go to churches and put on a hat just to see what they say. I wear it for the day. And if they stop me at the door and say, take off your hat, I say, oh, we're dealing with that type of spirit.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I used to check
when
them
I
out.
lived in Texas for a while, I would go to church and they would be wearing prom dresses, super nice dresses, 3-piece suits for the guys. It was insane to me. And I'm what are we doing? I don't even have a dress that's nice enough to go here. Sorry, I'll sit in the lobby.
Yeah. You're just I feel underdressed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never really cared about that type of stuff. And it's always weirded me out. You show up but that's my rebellion. That's
you're a
me.
rule breaker and I'm a rule follower. So that's probably
we have a good balance because of this. I'll kick in every door and she's going around closing them all. Nope, that's supposed to be closed. Nope, that's supposed to be
closed. The blinds, closing the doors.
Don't mind him. It's fine.
human wrecking ball. Awesome. But yeah, man, we go to church and we enjoy going to church, right. But we go to church with the mindset that we're there to be a part of the body of believers, and that we're there to connect with people of like mind, and we had JT follows JC on. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram, but TikTok, but he was on last week and he said basically something along the lines of it doesn't really matter if you're going to the church or not going to the church. We're the body, and we are on this internet connecting as the body. We go to church, but that's the believers going to the church. It doesn't matter. I mean, I liked what he said, because he said the non-believers can come if they want to, but we're not seeker friendly. Like, that whole thing needs to go away, because Jesus wasn't seeker friendly. He was like, if you wanted to follow him, great. But if you didn't, he'd be like, all right, see you later. We're going this way, and we've gotten so caught up in trying to make church fit non-believers that we forget that there's believers that need to be ministered to. There's this type of conversations that we need to have, where we actually sit down and be like, hey guys, why are we doing this?
Or get up in front of people and go, what do you think is going to happen when you die? And everybody would be like, well, I'm going to go to heaven. It's like, well, but what do you think is going to actually happen? Like,
what does that look like? With wings are going to come with bow and arrows, right? And glide.
It's like,
yes.
I don't even know what I would say. I'd be like, I've never thought of that before. I just don't think people talk about the weird parts of Christianity that make them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's what makes all of this so fascinating, the near-death experiences. I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're totally flowing.
The near-death experiences are catching people's attention because we have had this question for so long, and I don't know if you've heard of Lee Strobel, the Case for Christ.
It's on my shelf, actually.
Yeah, he wrote that book, and it's basically, outlining how he came to the point where he was like, okay, I have to just believe, because I've tried to disprove it for so long and I can't. Well, he actually just came out with a documentary about near-death experiences, and we were watching it the other day, and we were
Case
like,
for Heaven, I think is what it's.
I think it's called The Case for Heaven.
Oh wow, okay.
I hadn't heard of it, but I found it. On Amazon Prime. I think it was on there.
Okay, Amazon Prime.
It's very interesting.
Send me a link just to make sure I get that one right.
We'll put it in the description.
Okay,
so that everybody out there can grab that.
Awesome.
Yeah, he does another great job of going through a lot of these questions and going through a lot of how other cultures think about it and all of those different things. And then he gives a lot of stories that he's gotten over time, all of those things. So yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, it's really cool. Like I said, we'll put it in the description, but I want to get back to you. What do you got going on the podcast these days? Are you just moving and shaking like a crazy man?
Kind of, I guess. I don't know. I always tell people I don't know if I'm going to be doing this in 6 months from now. I don't know.
I know. Yeah. That's kind of how we've been. We're like,
it's crazier now than ever. I'll say that in a good way. In a good way. That's this is season for the Millennial Mustard Seed, and I don't know, like just a lot of stuff that like I'd had the feeling like, okay, this is going to grow. And like there were certain things God was telling me. I'm like, I can't tell anybody else this. They're going to think I'm nuts. Like even when I started the show, the first podcast years and years and years ago, I told people I'm going to get into different countries. People are going to listen to me and I'm going to talk with famous people. They're like, you're so stupid, dude. Like, just get your life right now. Like, you're not doing that right. Like, you're so wrong, And I was just like, all right, I'm going to start keeping stuff to myself. I'm like, God, some stuff is not meant for everybody. Yeah. But the season that's coming, the way that I've been putting it in generic across the board, and this is the glory, because the word says when one of us are glorified, all of us are glorified. When one of us are injured, all of us are dealing with that injury, because we are a body. We are a living body, diverse gifts of this God we wish to worship at this point in time. Superlative, right? But God is going to start to take people where other people are going to say, how did they get in? What's their qualification? They don't look the part. He's going to start to take those people and strategically set them up and crumble things that look like they're big and have power. Like podcasters are getting more views and whatever you want to call it than your local news anchors. Right. You told somebody that 10 years ago, you'd be like, yo, you crazy. Now it's like, yeah, we're right there.
Or they would have said, what's a podcast?
That was me. He's listened to podcasts forever. And I'm like, how do you even find these? Like, I'm thinking you have to go to a website. And he's like, well, it's just an app on your phone. Like, you have an iPhone, it's right here. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, time flies. Yeah, sometimes I feel like I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, I'm a podcaster. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, this is working. What happened?
Well, it's fun because like we'll just send out messages to people. You know, like we listen to your show. We love it. We want to have you on the show if you want to come on. And it's all whoever God wants to put on our show is kind of where
that's cool that you say that.
It's like Rick tends to be a little bit more like. Controlling of, he wants to control the show and the not in a bad way, but just everything has to be perfect. And, he's wants everything to be polished and great and
dedicated. He has a vision and he's trying to get close to what he's seen. Yeah.
Let's remember that you're not driving the bus here. You're a passenger and we're going where God wants us to go. And
it's humbling. That's so cool.
That's how we balance each other out too.
That's so cool. Yeah. And then other than that, I've been doing like symposiums. I've been like working with other people. There's a whole bunch of other shows at this point that are all reaching out. And I'm like, I have ideas. I'm like, yep, I knew that was going to happen. So there's stuff going on behind the scenes where I'm like, we're going to crush the industry for God's glory. Awesome. They don't know what's coming. I'll leave a lot of it for suspense for the listeners, but
as you should.
It's
that's
cool.
Awesome. Yeah. Cool. I'm excited to see what's going to go, man. Because
I know
we get to a place where I was telling Kristen, people don't care about the media anymore. They know that they're lying now. People don't care about the TV shows much anymore. Because they're like, they're lying. Or if we watch TV shows, a lot of times we're doing research. So we're watching documentaries and we're watching. And so we're getting to the point now where people are wanting this content. This specific content that we're doing now. And it's blowing our minds because nobody's wanted to talk about this stuff for a very long time. Like this has all been off limits, but now it's almost like the floodgates have opened and nothing is off limits anymore. Sometimes that's a bad thing, but for us.
Can I get really fringy for 1 second with you guys? Can I get really conspiratorial here?
Bro,
for those who hung along to this point, juice now.
Here it comes. Getting real.
So I was looking at the reality that the religious spirits, right, that are in place that have been guiding the church at large, not the church that we belong to, but like, right. I have a feeling that these spirits are okay with certain time slots for corporate gathering for prayer, right? So I'm looking at Wednesdays and Sundays and I'm going, why is that it? Right. I read the book of Acts, is different, right? They're just they're together. They're like never even apart. And then what's been going on in my private life, like there's people that minister that live multiple different, there's so much going on right now. Let me just pinpoint it down. There's one ministry in particular that's 7 hours away from me that travels here once a month for home prayer. Like, and we got people coming from New York, from Virginia, from just all over the place. And we're stuff is happening. And I'm going, we're not meeting on Sunday or Wednesday. So I started to think about this and I'm going, are the religious spirits okay with certain time slots for various reasons? Frequency, time of the day, time, right? Are they okay with the corporate gathering? Because prayer is not even emphasized. Because if it was, prayer tells us first bind the strong man and then plunder his house.
Right.
When's the last time you heard your pastor talk about that at the pulpit? Maybe 5 minutes of prayer at your Sunday service, right? And I'm not squashing them. Listen, we don't forsake the gathering. But they talk about that as if the only gathering, the only little box that gets checked is on Wednesdays and Sundays. And we started going, no. we're going to do everything. But like Wednesday and Sunday is going to be my veg day where I'm like, I'm chill. Like Wednesday evenings, I'm like, nope, I'm going to not do that at all. But Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, we're going to wreck it. And we started to actually see. So a little bit
makes you wonder though, because if you think about, you know, heaven, spiritual realm, all that stuff is so much more organized than people think. You know, it's not just angels just fluttering around like, what? Oh, hi, how are you? You know, like it's very, you know, they have courtrooms, they have rules, they have, you know, so it makes you wonder if it's like the spirits go to God and say, hey, can we allow this? And he's like, okay, fine. You know, like it could be that those times are,
the most resistance can be in the airways on those times. And those religious lowercase g gods that are over these regions that are oversight and overseeing all of this stuff in the spirit can be going, oh yeah, we're anticipating, because the one or two of them who really got the heart for God, they're not actually connecting. They're not sharpening. They're not actually like growing stronger. Right. So we're just going to set up, all of these, you know, attacks on these Wednesdays and Sundays. Right. And so I would challenge the listeners.
That's really interesting. Cause I feel like on Sunday, like we fight on Sunday mornings. Like we be fighting just about,
that's super
you know, a lot of weeks. Like
it is.
Or I'm like, you know, throwing around clothes. Like I hate all of my clothes, you know, it's just, and there's a certain sense of anxiety. I feel like on Sunday mornings.
Yeah. I think there's stuff going on in the spirit that we don't quite know about.
Yeah.
So
I think you're onto something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just the way that, you gotta get up in the morning and you gotta do this and you gotta get your kids ready and you gotta do this. And then you gotta go to church and then you have a fight on the way to church. And then you have to walk in the front door and be ready to be a nice, cleaned up.
You gotta feel
Christian.
like you gotta smile, like, oh, everything's going well. And it's like, no, it's not.
You're like, well, I don't like her right now. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't have a good poker face.
Something's wrong here. Right? There's so much more than that, you guys. There's so much more. Oh man,
I love it.
Yeah, we're gonna get some more breakthrough. So
I love
next
that,
time
man.
we talk.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. Well, we don't keep you too long. We know you have other obligations, and man, we've just really enjoyed this conversation. And I know that we are definitely going to have you back on if you're willing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I just can't stop getting fringy. I'll tell you the truth.
You guys got to check out his podcast. He's got lots of good stuff on there.
Yeah, promote your podcast.
You're really doing God's work.
Thank you. Yeah, anywhere that podcast can be found, it's the Millennial Mustard Seed. It's a mouthful, but just when you type it in,
it works.
I'm going to put some stuff in the show notes, and I would like to air this on my podcast as well. So if you guys want to send me the audio for this, that would be super cool to put it up for my listeners, because I get a lot of people say, tell us more of like my personal testimony, because the show is kind of based around, I'm capturing the journey of listening to other people's stories.
Right. But there is something powerful in your story.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I keep hearing that. I believe it is. It's just weird that I don't go, like, that's not my go-to. Like, it's so weird. People will be telling their stories and then something will charge up inside of me where I'm like, like I probably cut people off way more than I should. It's not professional, but it's like out of excitement. It's like, oh no, there's something here that connects to this, or this is like, you just want to dive in and be like, that makes me feel alive. So that's kind of what the show's about. Really, it's like we want to do everything the church wouldn't let you do in that corporate setting. We want to go those places. We want to expose the darkness. Your story is important. Every one of our stories is important. And in going and exposing the darkness and diving into the word, I believe we're actually going to strategically understand how the enemy has been set up and operating against us, and the power of our testimonies alone. Right. So Revelation says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and our testimonies. So if you've dealt with the SRA stuff, if you guys have dealt with PTSD, if you guys have dealt with just rejection overall, I mean, come on, who hasn't been heartbroken? Who hasn't had something happen in his life? We're all included in this. Now, the level of extreme is going to be different, how it's handled and how we kind of enter into that. But the fact of the matter is the devil's an enemy. He's a liar. He's a thief, and he's been. So
he never sleeps. He never eats. He's at your door all the time.
Getting pocket picked by him, God's got you. You just got to call on his name. And on the show, we just kind of wing it. It's like, I love not knowing what's going to be asked. I love like the real reactions. Like, so it's so cool. You guys didn't send me like questions out. Cause I just wait. I just watch with people. I'm like, I wonder how this is going to work. You guys are totally cool. You just show up. It's like, hey, what's going on? Let's do this. Let's dive in. And I like that too.
I know.
Let's go.
We're not driving the train here, that's for sure.
So, I found
Millennial Mustard Seed, you can't be authentic if you're not having a real conversation, and if you're not looking each other in the eyes and you're not being real. And that's what we have to be if we're going to talk about the most real thing in the world.
And reach people. You never know what part of your story or your story is going to touch somebody and change their life. I mean, it can be something like a podcast that changes somebody's life. So,
which I would encourage.
Thank you.
How long have you guys been podcasting? Like where you guys at?
Since January,
Since January, okay.
Yeah, not too long.
I would say literally for me, it was like years and I never heard back from anybody. It's like, that's not everybody's story, but there is somebody listening. I guarantee you, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. I would love to join you guys again for a conversation. There's some roundtable stuff that I'll have coming up. We're going to be getting some people together and just kind of hashing out some ideas and kind of floating around in these conversations in the weird space and testimonial space and stuff like that. And this is the church you guys as listeners should want to create with your friends, like recreate this conversation, you guys. Like you don't, it's cool that we're podcasters. It's cool that you guys can listen to this message and stuff like that. And please share it, like, subscribe to That's So Fringy. Do that same thing with my show. That helps us grow. You know, we spend time editing, reaching out to people, setting appointments. I mean, literally, I got a 6-hour time difference in 25 minutes. Like that stuff that takes work. And then the editing and then the promoting it and then praying over it and being like, let one more person, God, let this reach somebody. So you guys can help us by leaving us that 5-star rating and review and sharing it, but recreate these conversations.
That's our part. That's definitely
we actually
our part.
Just started on Saturdays. We have a bunch of, because we have teenage boys. And so we have a bunch of kids over in the backyard around the fire. We call it Fireside Jesus. And we just talk. Like it's nothing. Dope. We'll do a little Bible trivia or something, but just talk. Just open up the lines of communication.
All right. We know you're on a time crunch.
Yes.
We are so thankful, man. And we're going to send you everything that you need to get this out on your end. And we'll be in contact.
Awesome. You guys
God
are
bless
great.
You, my
Keep
friend.
up the good work.
Yes,
Thank you
too. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. See you on the next.
Bye.
Bye.